inventing a new recipe with a cheese better than Philadelphia cream cheese, Reboso wine, and the best guy to know at the Rialto market. This week, we're in Venice, Italy.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. You're in the place where we explore the best food in the world at destinationeatdrink.com, on the Destination Eat Drink YouTube channel, and here on the Destination Eat Drink podcast. This week, we're in Venice, Italy, with foodie tour guide, author, and podcaster Monica Cesarato. If you like food and travel, be sure to rate and review the Destination Eat Drink podcast. It's super easy to do and just takes a couple seconds. Plus, you'll help other foodie travelers like yourself find the podcast, and it'll make me happy too. Thank you so very much. Monica Cesarato leads hungry travelers in her city of Venice, Italy. She's an expert on the cuisine of Venice, especially the delicious little dishes called Cicchetti. In fact, Monica has written a new book called Andar per Bacari, Food, Wine, and Itineraries Among Venice. This pocket-sized guide is the perfect companion for your trip to Venice, and it doubles as a cookbook with lots of delicious and simple recipes. Monica tells me about taking 10 years to write her book, some of her favorite Cicchetti recipes, the wine of the Veneto region, and the fish vendor who's so proud to have his picture in her book. Okay, I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Monica Cesarato, thank you so much for being on Destination Eat Drink. It's been so long since I've talked to you. It's been over 3 years. Thank you for being back on the show.
Has it been so long? Oh my God, it felt like yesterday. Honestly, thought it was only a few months ago. Okay, right, yes. But yeah, it's been a while. Thanks for having me back.
Congratulations on the new book, Andar per Bacari.
Yes, Andar per Bacari.
Food, Wine, and Itineraries Among Venice. You know, the first time you were on, I went back and listened to the episode. You were talking about writing this book. And
yes.
And then I think it was maybe last year it came out originally in Italian. And I sent you a note immediately and I said, Monica, when's it going to come out in English? Because I want to have you back on. You said, soon, just wait. And now it's finally out in English. So congratulations. I'm so happy to be able to get this book.
Thank you. I'm also very excited because it was a 10-year labor of love and it was supposed to have come out in English first. But my editor is, my publisher is Italian and is actually they're local from Venice. And I am their first author being published in another language. So it was a bit like, they weren't so sure to wanted to publish it in, in English at first. So they waited to see how many sales they were doing with the Italian. The Italian was very good because we already sold over 3,000 copies. But for a small book, niche book like this is quite good. And so eventually got convinced. And last month, finally, he published it in English. I'm so happy.
This is the perfect book. If anyone's going to Venice and loves food, this is the perfect book to take with you because it fits in your pocket. You've got all the places in there. And once they're done with their tour of Venice, take it home and make all the recipes in it because you've got tons and tons of recipes for Cicchetti in it. But before we get into all that, let's define a couple of terms because, your book is called Andar per Bacari. And most folks are not going to know what Bacari means. So what is Bacari?
Right. So first of all, just before explaining what Bacari is, I would like to explain you why I kept the title in Italian. And I put my foot down with a publisher because they wanted to change the title. And I said, look, you've done everything you wanted on this book, but the title stays for the simple fact that Andar per Bacari is an experience. It is not, it's a way of life for Venetian. So it wasn't about talking about something that looks, and people keep saying it looks like tapas, but they're not tapas. It's not something, they're not appetizers. it is a way of life. So a Baccaro is a small place in Venice, and originally they only existed in Venice, and is only very 5-8 years now that you start having them in outside of Venice. Okay, the small places where the focus was on wine, and then you would have some small little bites to go with the wine, so you make sure not to get drunk while you were eating. Simple as that. But it's a way of life, because the way a Venetian will do it, they will stop in a Baccaro, have a small glass of wine that is called a ombra, and then have a little cicchetto to go with it. So he will do what we call il fondo, the bottom. He will make sure that you don't, the digestion wouldn't kick in, you wouldn't get drowsy and stuff like that. And it soaked the alcohol level in the bloodstream. And then after a couple of hours, they will stop in another part of town and do exactly the same thing. So it is a way of life. It's not, it's not aperitif really. It's something different. It's something unique of Venice. And a Baccaro comes from, there are many legends that you'll find all over the internet. One of the biggest ones says that Baccaro comes from the word Bacchus, from the god of wine, but actually it's not. It comes from the fact that back in the when the Venice was taken over by the Austrians, originally before that they used to have a monopoly of the Adriatic, of the wine trade. Once they got taken over, they lost the dominance, that got taken over by the Austrians. They couldn't import the wines from the Middle East anymore, so they started to import wines from Puglia. And there was this gentleman from Puglia that opened this place where he was selling his beautiful wines. Venetian fell in love with those. An old gondolier walked in one night, had a sip of his wines, and he said, "Un vin da baccara." But baccara in Venetian means to make a lot of noise, to have a good time together. Okay. And then the name stuck to his place, and he used it for his whole other. He opened many, many different ones in Venice. Simple as that.
What a great story. So what time frame is that we're talking about, Monica? When did that happen?
After during the Austrian occupation, so in the 1800s.
Okay. So over 100 years ago.
200 now.
200 years ago now. Okay.
Nearly 200, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Ombra, which means the small glass of wine that you would get when you go into one of these bars. Last time I had you on, we talked at length about Prosecco, which is the sparkling wine from the Veneto region. Today, I'd like to talk about some of the different wines, the still wines, the red wines, the white wines.
Yeah.
What can we expect? What kind of wines when we go into one of these Bacari?
First of all, I wanna explain something that I always do when I do my tours as well. Is trying to make people understand the importance of the Veneto region, and by Veneto region, I just don't mean Venice, but all the other provinces. So Vicenza, Verona, Treviso, Padua, Rovigo, and Belluno. The Veneto region is, as well as being one of the biggest regions in Italy, is also the biggest producer of wine in Italy, with over 11 million hectoliters per year. 70% is whites, the rest is red and a little bit rosé. And we are the region in Italy with the highest number of native grapes. And by native grapes, I mean that they only exist here and nowhere else in the world. So in Italy, if you know anything a little bit about wine, you can have a Nebbiolo, you can have a Barolo, a Barbera, you can have a Chianti, Montepulciano, Brunello. You call it what you want, a different region, different names, but it's always the same grape, the Sangiovese. In the Veneto region, we don't have a Sangiovese at all. We got more than 40 red native grapes and more than 40 white native grapes. Okay. So, and we're talking about grapes have been growing here for centuries, for millenniums, because we're talking about at least 1700 before Christ. That is a long time. The Veneto wines were already famous with the Latins, with the Romans, Some of the grapes that you should definitely try is, for the reds, Araboso. That is is a new wine. as in when you drink is new. Is a very old wine, but the word raboso comes from the word rabbioso in Venetian, that means angry, a bit fiery, because when you drink it, it's got a little bit of a peppery taste, and it's a very stringent, very sour. Okay, well, not sour as vinegar, but it's on the sour side. Okay, but tangy, and is slightly sparkling, even though it's not sparkling wine. It's a naturally fermented new wine. And that people, when I introduce this wine to everybody, people love it. It is really, really different from any other wine. Refosco, that's another grape that comes from the Veneto region that is very good and is not very well known. Obviously, the Valpolicella, both the Amarone and the Valpolicella Ripasso. Then from the whites, you have, of course, the Soave. You have a Garganega, you have a Lugana, you have a Ribolla Gialla, you have a Malvasia. I think we could stay here about an hour talking about Veneto wine. We should do another episode.
We could do a whole episode on this, right?
Yeah. But as I say, I think what I can say to you, this is the best way to do it when people come to Venice. And this was a tip that was given to me by one of my sommelier teacher when I was doing my sommelier course, was that when you walk into a restaurant, and this should be applied anywhere in the world, okay? When you go to a restaurant, you should always, first of all, decide what you're going to eat. Then you ask the maître, you're going to tell the maître what you're going to eat. You're going to tell him what type of wine you like. Not as much as red and white, but just tell them if you like fruit, if you are acidic, if you want it dry, whatever. Then you tell them your budget, and then you tell them you want a local wine. This allows them to give to you the best wine for your meal and for you to try some amazing local wines. That's it. That's my tip.
Good advice. Not just in Venice, but wherever you go. This is good advice. Drink the local wine because this is also what they're most familiar with, so they can give you a better guidance.
Yeah, but not only that, think about it. The wine was grown in the same area where the food was grown. So they got the same minerals, the same nutrients, and they come from the tradition of the history of the place. So obviously they go hand in hand.
In your book, you outline all of these different Cicchetti, and so with our little glass of wine, we're going to have Cicchetti. And I just wanted to open this conversation by asking you, Monica, what are some of your favorite Cicchetti? What if we were to go out into Venice, me and you, and we were to go into one of these bars, what would be something you would look for? You would say, "Oh, I really want to try that. I really want to have that."
Okay, number one for me is always octopus moscardino, and that is little octopus, not big. It's a small, little, tiny octopus in tomato sauce. That I could have a whole, pot of it on my own. I love that. Then definitely bacala mantecato. That is a mousse of dry cod, stockfish. That is one of the staples and most famous dishes from Venice. And I repeat, stockfish is not salt cod, so it's not bacalao, okay, like the rest of the world. It is stockfish. And for some reason here in Venice, we call it bacalao. Don't ask me, it's a long story. Nobody really knows why. And then another famous dish that I will get people two actually famous dish I will get people to try is definitely the sardine saor. That's a sweet and sour sardine. Because the saor was the method the Venetian used to use to preserve fish, meat, and vegetables. And for sure, our very famous polpette, the meatballs, because we have got all different types. Every single osteria, Bacaro makes completely different versions. You can have them fried, you can have them in tomato sauce, you can have them baked or whatever. So that's another, well, I have 4 actually that I will go for.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know we don't want to say that Cicchetti is tapas, but I would like to make a slight comparison in order to ask this question to you. Because
okay, I will allow you that.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you for indulging me. So, a lot of times in Spain, when you go into a tapas bar, you will see the plates already laid out and you point at things. And then here in Portugal, we have what's called a similar small plate called a petisco. And,
Mhm.
and sometimes, but very rarely, will you see the plate set out. You actually order off of the menu, and then the petiscos come out. So my question to you is, how does it work in Venice? Do we order and it comes out, or is there stuff laid out and we're pointing?
So it's never like on little plates, never you go to order it. It's actually on a counter. Usually they're on display, like, when you display cakes and stuff like that. It's a
Yes.
big display generally. Well, a real Cicchetti place will be like this because now they got so many different ones, whatever. But let's say a real Cicchetti place, it will be a display and you point and you ask them and you tell them which one you want. You can go from 1 to 10, wherever you want to just have a little snack, or if you want to make a meal of it. But yeah, you just usually point. What's interesting is they're never the same. So you can literally go to 5 different places and have completely 5 different experiences because each one will have his own take, his own, version of it. And some are more traditional, some are more adventurous. So it's totally different. And they are smaller. I think it's a difference with tapas. The main difference, I mean, also the reason when they were born, but I think it's also very, very much smaller than tapas. Tapas, I think, is also, they're on plates, as you say, it's like a little side dishes, if I'm not wrong. Mm-hmm. Am I correct? Yeah. When instead of Cicchetti, there are small little bites to it. You can really literally go have a small glass of wine and just one and walk away. And it will cost you like €2 for a small Cicchetto. Is back in the days was even cheaper. Think of it. Back in the days, it would have been like an egg with an anchovies. It would have been a bit of polenta with a little bit of cheese on top. It wasn't nothing particularly fancy or and big. It was literally something that you can just put in your mouth while you were drinking. You walk away. Simple as that.
That's what I like about it, is because these plates are so small that you can try all of these different things. You're not limited to, okay, I'm going to choose this one dish, and then if I don't like it, I'm kind of screwed because, I'm stuck with this big dish. If it's great, maybe I get another, or if it's not so great, maybe I get other things. I can get 5, 6 things and have a great evening.
Exactly. I mean, when I take people around on my tours, it's really interesting because generally I try to get an array of all different types, and I try to introduce people to dishes that maybe they wouldn't try themselves. So, like maybe the fresh anchovies, the sardines, the octopus, things that people generally are not so used to eat if they don't live in Europe, and it's very interesting because that's exactly what happens. Sometimes they try and they like it. Sometimes they don't like it. It can happen. Everybody's different, but it doesn't spoil the whole experience. It's just that one little thing that they didn't like. But then out of, let's say, of 6 things I gave them to try, it's only one and the rest they love. So it's a good way. And it's a good way also not to get too full as you're walking by, because I think it's the trouble when you go traveling. You go for lunch and you have a big lunch, and then all you want to do is go to have siesta because you're so tired.
Right.
And you miss out in so many hours of, because you go back to your hotel, you spend 2 hours sleeping, whatever. When instead you could have done those 2 hours doing some more sightseeing and so on. So, yeah, I think it's a great way to do Venice that way. Yeah, that's I always recommend it, even when I have friends, or it's not just clients, but even friends.
What I love about your book is you've got all of these recipes for Cicchetti in addition to all the great places to go to. And these recipes, what strikes me is that they're so simple, yet delicious. It's like there's not pages and pages of ingredients because
Thank you.
Because everything is it's easy, but it's also so flavorful because in Italy, in Venice in particular, but Italy in general, all of the ingredients are of such high quality. So you don't have to mask them with all these fancy sauces and all these other techniques and things like that. It's just get the best and then put these things together, and then you've got a wonderful Cicchetti. And that's what I really enjoy. 1 page and it's easy to make.
Yeah, you actually literally spot on. I'm so happy. I am so happy you actually totally got my intention. What's happened is when I start writing this book about, now it's 13 years because it was 10 years when I wrote it. So it's 13 years now. The idea was I wanted to write a recipe book. Okay. And it was a list of recipes. It wasn't just Cicchetti, it was the other stuff as well. So when eventually I spoke to to the publisher, and we agreed on how the book was going to be, and he said to me, look, we need to go pocket size. So you need to reduce the recipes. It needs to be a mix of everything. And I said, okay, I like the idea. Also because he said it's easier for the book to sell this way. Okay. And then I sat down and I thought, okay, how can I make my book different from other books that speak about Venetian cuisine? Because there's loads, not just written by Venetians and Italians, but also by foreign people. That the difference was that I didn't want my recipes to be changed, if you know what I'm saying. I wanted to write the original Venetian recipes as when people come over, try them. Because I think, unfortunately, what's happening, and don't get me wrong, I like the idea, I understand why it's done. A lot of people will write books about Italian food in general, let's say, and they adapt it to America, England, Australia, whatever it is, whichever country they're writing for. They usually adapt the recipe to the country, both changing it. Okay. Venetian recipes are so easy and they can easily be replicated back at home. But I thought, no, I'm going to leave them as they are. And I'm pretty sure. So I made sure that there were recipes that I know that people can find ingredients when they are back in whichever country they are. And I wanted them to be simple because I wanted people that cannot even cook to be able to make them. That was my goal. Yeah. And I'm happy you noticed that. Thank you.
Success on that goal, Monica.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about one recipe in particular because you've got a couple in there that have artichokes in them, and I love artichokes. And I saw this recipe for crostini con robiola, and I personally wouldn't have dreamed of combining artichokes, almonds, sun-dried tomatoes, and olives. And then I saw the recipe and I thought about it. I'm like, this is genius because you've got nuttiness, saltiness, umami, grassiness all together, held together with the cheese. And I can't wait for spring to come so that I can get some artichokes and try this recipe.
So this actually was one of the recipes that was born during the cooking class, during a cooking class where we were actually doing, it was interesting. We were doing a cooking class talking about Cicchetti to a group of Venetian people. So it was very challenging because, as you can imagine, we are trying to explain about Cicchetti to people that actually know what Cicchetti are.
Oh my goodness!
So with my colleague of Cook in Venice, we were trying to, we did obviously the basic recipes, and then we were trying to experiment a little bit with some other versions, more. Something different. And we came up with robiola, that is a very versatile, soft cheese of a Stracchino family. Okay. It's cheese actually originates from the Langhe region, from Piemonte. It's a mix between cow, goats, and sheep's milk. Okay. And it's delicious because I always say, once you have robiola, you never go back to Philadelphia. Simple as that. Okay. Because it has the consistency of Philadelphia, but
so it's like
the flavor
a cream cheese.
Is about is 1,000 times better flavor. It's full of I don't know. The flavor is amazing. And we thought, well, we can't just present it just with robiola. So we tried to experiment with different things. And of course, in Italy, we use a lot of olives. We do use artichokes a lot. We use the sun-dried tomatoes. We do nuts and stuff like that. So it was. We did a bit of experiments, obviously on the portions as well, because, you put too much, when it's too much, it's a bit too little, it wasn't enough. And it went down very well with the Venetians. So we thought, okay, can definitely make the book then. Definitely make a book. And the artichoke was important because, of course, Venice is very famous for its artichokes from the island of Sant'Erasmo, the famous castraure, that is the first little bud that comes out of the artichoke in spring. And they're very famous because they only exist on the island of Sant'Erasmo. It's a DOP, so control origin product, and it's purple. And these particular kind of artichokes are very how can I say, they're sweet and sour at the same time. They're very full of minerals because, of course, being grown on this island in the middle of a lagoon, loads of minerals and salt. But at the same time, they're very delicate. So they're very good, both cooked and raw as well. So you can slice them very thinly. But obviously back outside of Venice, you can replicate with any kind of little artichokes and using, the ready-made, those you can either cook them or you can buy them, the ready-made one in the jars. But now they're widely available, I think, even in America. I hope.
Yes.
And if they don't, they should buy them. Yeah.
So that's fascinating. I had no idea that this was a recipe that you invented. This is not a traditional recipe that you're sharing in your book. You guys came up with this, and it was a wonderful creation. I can't wait to try it.
Yeah. Well, it is one that we created, but then I see sometimes in some of the Bacari that I know, not always, because Robiola is quite expensive. So as a cheese, so it will make the Cicchetti to be sold very, very expensive. But every so often I see it. For example, there is one of the Bacari. Now he hasn't done it for a while for very reason, but for a long time he used to do it with bresaola, that is a cured meat from Italy, stuffed with a Robiola cheese and then marinated in oil, and that was very, very good. So you did every so often. Most of the stuff we put in was actually is all the stuff we actually got from the different Bacari, but every so often I think one or two recipes are those that we actually devised, but for the rest it was all the traditional and new ones, of course. Yeah,
I noticed something in your book in the vegetable section. The Cicchetti recipes, they're organized alphabetically, but I noticed something else, and this may just be a coincidence. In fact, I'm sure it's a coincidence. They're also almost arranged according to season, because there's at the beginning of the recipes, there's a couple with artichokes and fennel. Those come out in the spring. Then there's a few recipes with peppers and tomatoes. They come out in the summer. And then finally, at the end of the chapter, there's butternut squash, and that's a fall recipe. And I thought,
actually, it was alphabetical, but you actually noticed it now. You're right. See, I see. This book was meant to be, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
because let's say, seasonal dining is so important in all of Italy, but in Venice in particular, right?
Exactly. But not only that, I just wanted to make sure that people understood by, if you notice, well, first of all, I made sure that the Cicchetti were divided by type, so fish, meat, and vegetables, because I thought it would be nice also for people that are vegetarian to have a list of Cicchetti that they can do. But also, my intention was for people to understand that it's not just fish that is important in Venice, but vegetables. The Veneto region is one of the regions in Italy with the highest production of vegetables and fruits. Okay, I'm not so sure how much production, but we are one of the biggest regions in Italy, if not the biggest, but definitely one of the biggest. And I just wanted to make sure people could see the array of vegetables that we have. So it's not just the artichokes and it's not just tomatoes. You have the onions, you got the fennels, you've got the zucchini flower, you have zucchini, you have a butternut squash, we have a cabbage. And this comes from our tradition of cooking, because people think that, there is a misconception about Venetian cuisine, that is very bland and is very basic. No, first of all, it's not bland. It is a cuisine that works on fresh. Like you were saying before, the ingredients got to be fresh. So you don't need thousands of sauces, thousands of ingredients, thousands of spices to cover the flavor, because it's fresh and it tastes good. But it's also a cuisine that was made of a lot of fruits and vegetables. And we kind of lost this in the history, because from the 60s onwards, everybody comes and only eats fish, because that's what the people the tourists from the north, like the German, the Austrians, and so on, were asking where they were coming to the city, because of course they didn't have access to fish. So they wanted to have fish. And the majority of restaurants start to follow the trend. So instead of proposing what really was Venetian, they proposed to the client what the client was asking. And we shifted to a lot of fish and less vegetables. But now I got to say things are changing, thankfully. So we are rediscovering that part of our cuisine, and I'm very happy about that.
That's awesome. In your book, it's I don't want people to think it's just recipes, because you also you also lay out all of, well, there's history, but you also lay out all of these itineraries where you give people walking tours, basically, and you say all of these great Cicchetti spots to stop at, the bars. So, I don't want to go through all these itineraries. People should get the book, but I wanted to ask you, Monica, if we were to go out, describe to me what a typical evening would be like, sampling wine and Cicchetti around the city. Like, how would you organize it yourself? Not the places, but the philosophy, the idea.
Okay, right, good. I'm glad you asked. You didn't ask me about places, because it's not that I don't want to tell people about the places. Just I don't want to put one in front of another, because there's about 30 of them, and I like them all. Of course, I have my favorites, like everybody, but it wouldn't be fair. Okay, but this is how I think things should be done. Well, first of all, I wouldn't jump from one district to another. I will stick to a district where you don't have to walk too much in between. In fact, the itineraries in the books are divided by districts. So according to which sestiere, the sestiere is the districts in Venice. So according if you are in Canareggio, in Castello, in Dorsoduro, there are a list of places where you can go to, so it's easier. I will start adding to those places about 5:30. That is a bit earlier than your typical Venetian will do, because that way you get to sit down. Because otherwise, if you go at the time that a typical Venetian goes, that's about 6:37, then you will find the place is packed. So it's good to go a bit earlier. So that's my suggestion. So go about 5:30. You start with, I know everybody comes to Venice to have a spritz, but I will say no. Go for wine. Okay. Go for wine or my drink that I've been trying to push for years now, that is called a cinico, and it's a version of a spritz, but much better. It is prosecco, lime, mint, and cinnamon liqueur. So trust me, very good. I define it as summer with a hint of Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
And there's only one place in Venice that does it. But if people want to know which one, they're gonna have to write to me, because I'm not divulging that online. Okay, or is in the book. You will find it definitely in the book. No, I will start definitely by going and have a glass of wine, like an ombra, a small glass of wine, maybe two if you are the kind that can take two, with maybe 2 free Cicchetti, no more than that. Then take a little stroll, move to another place, and try different Cicchetti and different, wine, and do this. And you can probably do about 3 of these, taking it very easy. I wouldn't do a pub crawl, so I wouldn't squash all of this in an hour. I will honestly do it over a 2-3 hours time scale. Okay, to really enjoy, to really doing it the way the Venetians do it. But it's not just about walking in and drinking. It's about walking, meeting people, socializing, do a bit of people watching, do a little bit of gossiping as well. And then once you're done, you move to the next one. You meet some different people along the way, and so on. That's what I'm saying is andar per Bacari, I couldn't translate it going to the bars. It's not the same. It is literally a stroll with food and wine. It's not even a walk. It's a stroll with food and wine. That's what it is.
I've loved this lifestyle. This is it's just exquisite.
Don't we trust me, don't we.
Well, Monica, before I let you go, one of the things that I say is, the 2 things that you want to do first when you get to a city is, number 1, take the food tour, and we'll have a link to your information so that when folks go to Venice, they can do a food tour with you. Highly recommend that. But also the second thing I say to do when you get to a new city is to go to the market, so you can get a feel for what the ingredients are that the locals are taking home and cooking with. And maybe if you're in Airbnb, you're going to be doing some cooking yourself, maybe. So
absolutely.
There's a famous market in Venice called the Rialto Market. What would you say about this place?
Well, first of all, it's one of the oldest in Europe, if not the oldest, but pretty sure one of the oldest. It is a fish market and a vegetable market. Of course, it has changed drastically through the years. Now is a little bit what it used to be, of course, because the number of Venetians, of course, declined from 180,000 to less than 50,000. So you can understand. But it's open from Monday to Saturday. But on Mondays, there isn't the fish market. There is only the vegetables because, of course, the fishermen do not work at the weekends. But let's say it's open from Monday to Saturdays, and is an amazing place because there is a clear distinction between the area where they sell all the fruits and vegetables, and it's amazing because according to the season you get all these different bright colors and these different perfumes and aromas and smells, and it is really beautiful. And then you have a section dedicated to the fish. But again, is dedicated between the older area where they tend to sell more of the wild fish, and then another area where they sell instead the daily fish that is being raised in the lagoon and so on. But I repeat, is very interesting. What was interesting is that back in the old days, and I'm talking about maybe until about 30 years ago, so we're not talking that long ago, early in the morning, and I'm talking about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you would have the boats arriving, the fishermen boats arriving to the market to sell the fish at, as you say, like in a proper fish market, to the stalls, and then the stalls will sell it to the public. And then you had all the boats coming in from the different islands and the different areas of the mainland where they were growing fruits and vegetables, bring them in to be sold. The way of doing things have changed because, of course, by law, they cannot do that anymore. They got to buy from the proper dedicated fish and vegetable markets of Venice now. But the idea is still the same. So most of the stores will only sell local vegetables, local fruits, so you will only find stuff in season. And the same goes for the fish. You will find most of the fishes from the lagoon and the rest maybe from some other parts of Italy, but that's as far as it gets. We don't go outside of the Mediterranean, so Okay.
Perfect.
And that's what's interesting. Yes. And if you go to my fishmongers, you go to ask for Gianni, and you tell him you're Monica's friend, then he'll give you very good fish.
You got the guy. Of course you have the guy.
Of course. If there is a picture of him on the book, so you can go with the book and show him, oh, look, that's you. But he'll be even more excited because he was very happy when his pictures ended up in the book. He was very, very happy.
Well, Monica, it's been great catching up with you. Congratulations on the book, Andar per Bacari, Food, Wine, and Itineraries Among Venice. Of course, we'll have a link to that in the show notes, and we'll also have a link to your food tours so that people can look you up. I highly recommend folks get this. If you're going to Venice, get it. If you're not going to Venice and you want to cook like a Venetian, you should pick it up as well. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's been great talking to you today.
Can I just say one more thing? Sorry, just very quickly. The book should be available on Amazon.com, but we're having a problem at the moment. So if people cannot find it on Amazon.com, they can send me a message. They can buy from me, and that way they'll get it also with an autograph and a dedication. That's it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Great advice. Thank you, Monica. That's her, the delightful Monica Cesarato, talking about her home and the city she loves, Venice. You can learn more about Monica, book a food tour with her, or buy an autographed book at monicacesarato.com. That's Cesarato. I've also got a link in the show notes at radiomisfits.com/DED255. And I've got a link to Monica's first appearance on the podcast 3 years ago. And you can get that directly at radiomisfits.com/DED90. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, another delightful guest, Michela Malazzi, host of TV's Bare Feet Show. How lucky am I to get to talk to all these wonderful people? And best of all, Michela was in Lisbon, so we sat down for dinner and a chat about the new season of her show, so don't miss that. And while you're waiting, head over to destinationeatdrink.com. I just posted a story about a great winery here in Portugal. It's called Quinta do Piloto, and you've likely never heard of it, but they have terrific wines and an incredible view. And you can see pictures of the wine and the view along with my story about the place at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. I also just posted a video. This one is about the Bay Festival in our city of Setúbal, Portugal. Lots of fun out on the water, impressive sailing ships, and even some screaming guitar solos to melt your face. You can see that by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or by going to YouTube at Destination Eat Drink 946. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla, a guy who's opening a Bacari in Venice that only serves scotch. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson. I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.